everybody, and welcome to OpenView's Wednesday webinar series. My name is Casey Renner, and I'm the Community Manager here at OpenView. OpenView is a venture capital firm based here in Boston that focuses on expansion stage software companies and helping them acquire, retain, and grow the right customers and talent. Of course, you can find out more at openviewpartners.com. Joining us today, we have Blake Bartlett, who's going to walk us through the foundations of product-led growth. Blake is a partner here at OpenView, where he invests exclusively in expansion stage SaaS businesses. Blake works closely with his companies on product and growth strategy. His investments include companies like Expensify, Pantheon, Optimizely, Wayfair, and Glassdoor. A few housekeeping items for all of you before we begin. There will be a Q&A at the end. As questions come up, please use the chat feature on the left side of your screen, and Blake's going to try to get to as many as possible. The recording of this and the deck will be sent out tomorrow, so if for some reason you have to end early or get off early, not a problem. We will make sure to get that over to you. So all that being said, Blake, I'm going to turn it over to you to get going.
Great. Thank you, Casey, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today, and we are going to dive into this concept of product-led growth. It is a topic that we've been thinking a lot about here at OpenView. We've been studying some of our companies that are pioneers in this area, as well as some of the broader industry leaders, and we're excited to share some of our thoughts with you on the topic. So first off, you're probably wondering, WTF is product-led growth? Very good question, and we're going to dive in. To start with, product. The first word in product-led growth is product, and product is paramount. And you don't have to look very far these days to see that this is very, very evident. If I throw up a slide like this that shows all of these logos, and this is just a sampling, immediately you recognize these companies. And you immediately recognize these as some of the main primary innovators in the SaaS world and in the software world. And also, look, your company probably runs on these products. You might be a customer of a couple of those products. You might be a customer of all of those products and many other that are akin to them. But it's safe to say that the most innovative software companies today, the newest and most innovative software companies, are certainly pro-product and product-led, but also pro-customer. And to illustrate this, if we take a look at a company that we love here in Boston, friends of the firm, a company called Help Scout. Help Scout, this is their team page, and lots of pretty faces here, but if you specifically look in at some of the titles, you see that everybody is a customer champion. So very clearly pro-customer. Everybody's oriented towards the customer. Another great example of someone that we love here in Boston, Wistia. If you look at the page here and dig in a bit, you see as many, you see more customer happiness people than any other role. So customer happiness, customer happiness, customer happiness. Again, very much pro-customer. So we have pro-product, we have pro-customer, but also seemingly anti-sales at times. And let me explain a little bit what I mean on that front, because it's certainly a question that I had when I first started digging into this and seeing these trends. If we bring back Help Scout, again, everybody's a customer champion. There's nobody here in sales. If we bring back Wistia, again, customer happiness and many other roles in the company, but nobody with sales in their title. If we look at a company like Trello, which many of you probably use in your organizations, this is their homepage. There's nowhere here that says contact our sales team. There's no listing of the sales team. If I click on Get Started, it just leads me into starting an account. You have to dig and dig and dig to find Trello for Business or whatever they call it in order to really understand what that offering's about and to get in touch. So sales is not front and center here. And you really have to dig to find it, if at all. I mean, some companies have, you can't even find it, right, like a MailChimp or something like that. And so the question is then, for us, the ever-smart, ever-wise venture capitalists, how did we react? What was my reaction? Something like this. You're not allowed to do that. That was a direct quote from me, right? There's a standard way to do things. There's a right way to do things, and that's all about sales. And that's, let's kind of go down the trodden path. And that was the initial reaction. But I think, we realized something. And because what we ultimately did is we started to see this trend more and more and more. And so the knee-jerk reaction started to, once we looked at the logos, seem like, okay, what's going on here? These logos are all the absolute best companies, right? They're knocking it out of the park. And I think we realized, I certainly realized and had an epiphany myself that, quite frankly, I just needed to evolve. And so we did. We did some introspection. We thought about it a lot. We studied this. We evolved. And in so doing, we realized something, that, frankly, this is the future. And it's not sort of an anomaly. It's not somebody breaking the rules. It's not somebody doing something they're not allowed to do. It really kind of is the future. And it's what we're seeing as the most innovative software companies today are embracing product-led growth over sales-led growth. And we're going to unpack what that means. Again, it all starts with product. So what does it mean to start with product at a DNA level within a company? I think it makes a lot of sense to start with a quote from Paul Graham, who started Y Combinator. And his classic quote is, to anybody that's going through Y Combinator, make something people want. Right? That's a really great place to start, is making something people want. And that's in opposition to what I hear a lot of times is doing a startup. And I don't recommend doing a startup, in air quotes. I think if you hear the founding story, and this is what I do for a living, I hear people talk about founding stories. And if somebody says, well, I used to work at a big company and I decided that I wanted to do a startup. Or, I was getting my MBA and a few of my section mates and I looked at each other and said, let's do a startup. Or, my co-founders and I previously had a company. We sold it. It was a big success. We realized we wanted to do another startup. That is not really sort of the most compelling thing for a VC to hear. Conversely, solve problems. So instead of doing a startup, it's more, what is the problem out there that I can solve? And quite frankly, I think a lot of times I find some of the most compelling founding stories in the most compelling companies really to be led by reluctant founders oftentimes. Nobody intended to do a startup. It was not sort of their game plan to go have fun in startup land. They had a problem, and they tried to solve the problem. They tried to look out there for a solution that solved the problem. That solution didn't exist. Or the existing incumbent solutions were just abhorrent and didn't actually solve the problem that they had. So reluctantly they said, all right, fine. If you're not going to provide me with a solution, universe, then I'll do it myself, right? Or you scratch your own itch, right, internally, and it turns into something. We all know the famous stories of pivots with Slack and others that did not start with the intention of being a chat application, but solved an internal problem and then ultimately became their business and became a massive success. So it's solving problems, not doing a startup and thinking like an MBA. It's really thinking from a customer-first perspective and a problems-first perspective. And then after you've done that, after you've started to solve a problem and build a product, I think it's important to talk about product market fit. And the reality is that product market fit, everybody has a different flavor of product market fit, a different way to test it and measure it. But fundamentally, even before we say what qualifies product market fit, it's not binary. It is not a binary thing. A lot of people treat it as that, which is either you have it or you don't, and that's the end of the story. But I think that it is possible to solve a problem and solve a real problem, and to do that for real users, and to do that by making a real product, and to, in so doing, get real user love and to get real user feedback, yet still not have a business, which makes you like Charlie Brown here. And what do I mean by that? What does that look like in real life? To have built a product, to have solved a problem, to have have real users using your product and loving your product. I think, quite frankly, you can look at Product Hunt. and you'll find a lot of these. Product Hunt is an amazing site. If you don't look at Product Hunt, if you don't get their feeds, if you don't sort of get their email, today you should. There's a ton of really good information in there, and it's a community-driven site where new products are sort of launched, and people upvote those products, and then those goes into sort of the daily digest and whatnot. But a lot of the products in there are something like this. It's a bit small on the screen here, but this is a product that's called Emoj. And as it describes here, it allows you to find relevant emojis from text in the command line, which to me sounds pretty awesome. But I don't know if this is a horse that I would bet on. If you go through Product Hunt, this is a lot of things like this. There's side projects. There's things that are being built by indie developers on the side. There's things that really solve a lot of solve a problem, but they just happen to be very tactical in nature, or sometimes one could argue sort of fun or frivolous in nature, like emojis in the command line. Now, it is important to note that there are lots of great companies launching products on Product Hunt. So these are a few other really popular products recently. Trello released an integration for Slack. This was #1 in tech a few days ago. A great analytics business that we know well called Keen.io released a new product called Native Analytics. Lead Flows, this was a new product that was released by HubSpot, was super popular a couple days back. So real companies are releasing real products. It's not just all fun and games on Product Hunt. So take a look at it. But I think that this brings up the question, again, that it's not binary, but really that it comes down to a continuum. And I think that the continuum is all about customer value. And you can be valuable in different orders of magnitude. At the left-hand side here, you have tactical value, and that can go all the way up to strategic value. It's not just a binary black and white thing, are you valuable, are you not, but where do you sit on the continuum of customer value? Which is a question you might be asking yourselves. Where do I sit, or where does company X sit? And I think that the answer, the litmus test, quite frankly, is charging. It's money. If you sort of go out and ask somebody to pay for your product, that is the initial litmus test and the best measure for, is there product market, is there customer value here? Because if you ask somebody to pay for the product that's been free and they all say no thanks, then it might have been a nice to have, but certainly isn't anywhere near a need to have. And I think there's a direct correlation between how much somebody is willing to pay for a product and where you sit on a tactical or a strategic sort of customer value front. Now, this is not to imply that if you are tactically valuable, that you don't have a real large business opportunity. And only you can build a huge business opportunity with a massively strategic value-oriented product. Because if the product is tactical yet has a massive market opportunity, meaning everybody can use it, then you can charge a lot of people a small amount of money and still build a really big business. And I think that that's ultimately you see that a lot with consumers, right? Netflix for me is less than $10 a month. That's not a lot of money, but tens of millions of people use Netflix, and so therefore it's a huge market opportunity, right? But this brings up another question: is if and I think I had mentioned it, but if you initially put up that paywall and you ask somebody to pay for something that they didn't previously pay for, and then there is no willingness to pay, meaning you don't even get the single dollar sign, you get zero, then the question is maybe there isn't a lot of customer value here to begin with. And if you look at this whole continuum, it starts to bring in, again, that continuum of customer value and a continuum really of product market fit. So it's not this binary thing, do I have it, do I not, but it really is kind of where do you sit on the continuum on this curve here. And again, that's what you see. Again, if you're looking for it in real life in examples, take a look at Product Hunt. You're going to see a lot of products that people love, that people use, that people get a ton of upvotes, that have rabid fan bases, especially when you start talking about developer tools or designer tools or simple sort of workflow tools for product managers and PMs, things like that. However, it is not synonymous that you've built a product that has a bunch of love on Product Hunt or even a rabid following with, that is not synonymous to having a big company. So I think it's important to go through these questions and ask yourself these questions first. And so after you've built the product and after you've sort of established product market fit, engaged where you are in this sort of continuum of customer value, the next question is time to value, right? How quickly does somebody sort of start to get value from the product that they're using? And really this is all about removing hurdles. So I'll give a few examples that are actually non-SaaS related. First, I'm a huge fan, Warby Parker. They make these awesome glasses. You're probably very familiar with them. And my ugly mug here is wearing those exact glasses. I'm a huge fan, like I said. But Warby Parker fundamentally had a huge challenge ahead of them. Buying glasses online is kind of a scary thing. Even though the product is great in terms of it looks awesome online, the price is relatively reasonable, $95 for everything, including prescription lenses. It's great, but what's it going to look like on my face? Does it fit my face? It looks great on the model, but everybody's face is different, as we all know if you've tried on glasses or sunglasses. So that's a huge hurdle. That's a huge amount of friction to buying glasses online. So Warby Parker came out with this thing very early on called the Home Try-On Kit, where for no cost you can get 5 pairs of glasses sent to you for free. Try them on. If you like one, then you get your prescription filled. If you don't like it, get another 5. You can keep going on forever and ever until you find a pair that you like. So they've created, removed that hurdle to buying online by removing the unknown. They also did more recently, pull this next slide up here, something awesome with their stores. So Warby Parker now has a bunch of stores in major metropolitan areas that are fantastically designed, as you see here. Glasses from floor to ceiling, awesome mirrors, super helpful people walking around with iPads, ready to take your order. They have, really fast 15-minute appointments to actually get your eyes examined there on site with an optometrist. It's great, but what's interesting is that this is not a retail store per se. This is, again, removing friction for online for online sales, because you don't walk out of Warby Parker retail shop with a pair of glasses on your face. You walk out with an order form or with an order confirmation email, and then ultimately the order is fulfilled in a traditional e-commerce fashion, right? So this is just another non-SaaS, non-B2B example of removing friction for something that has a pretty high bar of buying glasses online. So if we bring it back to the SaaS world, SaaS hurdle number 1, what is the thing? Meaning, what is your product? Why do you exist? Why am I on your website? Please tell me about your business. And I'll sort of refer to this really interesting study that I recently came across called the SaaS DNA Project. And I would highly recommend taking a look at this and going through it. There's a ton of really, really good content in this project. And this guy, Hitan Shah, who's a serial founder, he's started companies, I think most notably Kissmetrics, and then a bunch of others as well in the SaaS world. He did this and sort of examined a number of SaaS, basically front pages of SaaS marketing sites, and then used not just himself subjectively, but used usertesting.com and their sort of panel to see what can we glean in are these sites good or not, and how do they sort of rank and stack up on a variety of different things that are important to marketers. And so, again, on this idea of what is the thing, I think that it really sort of comes down to ease of understanding the SaaS marketing page that you land on. And so here, there's tons of companies on here, tons of names. You see at the left, you have sort of the least easy to understand based on data from this study, companies like Insightly and User Voice, Chartbeat, it looks like, and others. Other great companies too. I mean, Hootsuite's over there, Intercom's over there. Those are certainly awesome companies, but they rank lower on the ease of understanding. And over at the far right, you have the ones that are super easy to understand, like Trello and Zen Payroll. So if we examine these a little bit, and I'll just take the one at the very far left and the one at the very far right. I have no sort of opinions here. I'm just taking the polar sort of ends of the spectrum. Here's Insightly. And Insightly, I have to, now that I think about it through this lens of ease of understanding, I have to say I kind of understand where the researchers from user testing were coming from. The sort of big tagline is unleash your inner hero with Insightly, which sounds inspiring, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what that does for me as a business. The next then sort of sub-tagline is the CRM that works for your business. And I think, okay, Great, this is a CRM system. I go down to the next line, it's CRM and project management. Okay, so it's not just CRM, it's project management. Then I go down to the features, there's powerful CRM, there's project management, and there's social CRM, all of which are different product categories. And now I've kind of gone from having a sense of clarity to kind of not really knowing what to do with this information. And I think you see that in the content or the feedback that they showed on the SaaSDNA project website. Specifically, here's one, I'm not really sure what this company does. Another point is, looks like they do some sort of project management, which is good. But actually, Insightly's, they're largely a CRM business. So this person is coming to the wrong conclusion about what the business does. So this illustrates the importance to be very clear on what the thing does, what your product does, why you exist. And it's incredibly difficult to speak clearly. But here's the other end of the spectrum. So we have Gusto, which formerly was called Zen Payroll. Pretty damn clear here that payroll and benefits under one roof is what Gusto does. And if that was not clear enough, the next line says, discover how easy it can be to manage payroll and benefits for your business. That is super simple. It's almost to the point where a marketer might be resistant to writing it because it is so simple and there's no flowery language in there at all. But I think it's super powerful. And the users obviously said the same thing. And even if that text and that copy is not enough, I love this, that there's this, see how it works in 1 minute. And you can all go and watch the video, but it's a really good, really concise 1-minute video that says what Gusto is. So again, on the sense of ease of understanding, I agree, and it's intuitive to me that a site like this that we're looking at right now would do super well from a understanding standpoint, and that initial hurdle of what does this thing even do? So now we come to hurdle 2 for SaaS companies in marketing and growth and all those kinds of things. What do I do with the thing? I think I've figured out what it does for the first step, but what do I do with it, and how exactly does it work? And here I think that you got to show, not tell. Showing is much better than telling. So I'll give an example, and I stole this from Fargo. If anybody's seen the movie Fargo, it's great. I love it. Or then there's obviously the show Fargo, which is getting a ton of critical acclaim and is great as well, but they always open the episode or the film with this. This is a true website. The content depicted in these slides are taken from the internet in 2016. At the request of the survivors, the names have been removed out of respect for the dead. The rest has been shown exactly as it occurred. So that's a dramatic lead-in. But let's look at this site. This is just a generic SaaS site. Again, names being removed, but we have a lot of words here, a lot of words, and somewhat vague words that, quite frankly, for myself, I don't really know what they mean. We have customer analytics, and then we have empowering insights professionals with rapid predictive insights to improve customer experience. A lot of buzzwords there. I don't really know what this means. And then below that, you have another sort of big block of text to describe. I don't know. First off, the first question, like, what does this thing do? I don't know. And then how do I use the thing? I don't know. This is kind of confusing. If I scroll down a little bit, the text block is followed by more text, another text block. Introducing customer analytics, what is this? It's for insight professionals. I've never heard the word insights professionals before, and I've been a VC for a decade. But if I click on this learn more, it takes me to, again, more text. And with stuff that's kind of generic that could be for like any type of company, instantly root cause drivers, which I don't even know if that's grammar. But there's just a lot of things here that you could say personalized targeting. That could be any number of companies. It's just it doesn't really tell me what this company does or what I do with it or how the product works or anything like that. So it's kind of confusing. And if I contrast this experience and the vagueness of it, no offense to the makers, but if I contrast it with a company like Smooch, again, coming back to the idea of show, don't tell, you have a little bit of text over here on the left, but then you have this big hero image over here on the right that literally shows me what it's like. And I can pretty clearly figure out that, okay, even if I don't know exactly how it works, Smooch allows me to do messaging, it seems like on Facebook Messenger, which has 900 million users, with businesses. And it allows, through this pay now thing, it allows me to actually purchase something. That seems pretty cool. Maybe it's it's the whole conversational UI, chatbot, conversational commerce thing people are talking about. I'm just intuiting that by this image. I don't know what this company does if I'm visiting it for the first time, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, and also much more engaging, as you probably saw with the comparison. Another great example, and I'd encourage you to go to Smooch's site. I would also encourage you to go to Typeform's site. Typeform is awesome. We use it a ton here internally. And if you look at Typeform, this is a still image, obviously, but the actual website, typeform.com, both of these things on the left and the right are actually animated GIFs. So it actually shows the workflow of what it's like to go through a Typeform. And so they don't have to, they could have a paragraph that describes why old forms suck and why Typeforms are so much better, but I really see it come to life, and it's very, very clear what their UI is all about and how conversational it really is when I see it here, literally when I first land on the page. And you'll have the same experience when you go to typeform.com. So check it out. So that's being very clear. Now, the second part of this is, all right, you've clearly shown me, but now can I experience some of that value? And there's some products, and look, this isn't doable for every single product in the world, but I just want to give an example, a few examples, that some products do deliver value before sign up, before I've ever even entered my email or become a customer or done a trial or logged in for a freemium version or something like that. I can still be getting value from a product. What would be a great example? Join Me. I'm sure all of you guys have used Join Me at some point in time. And I know that the first time I used Join Me, and this is a few years ago, right? Join Me's been around for 5 years or something like that. But the very first time somebody just sent me a Join Me link or said, hey, go to join.me and type in these 9 numbers, and boom, I was instantly looking at somebody's screen. And if I compare that to GoToMeeting, or if I compare that to WebEx, which every single time you have to download that client, every single time it doesn't really work as it should, every single time the meeting's like 6 or 7 minutes late because of the rigmarole, that experience as a viewer versus the experience with Join Me, it's night and day, right? And I was wowed by this experience with Join Me the first time I ever used it. And then I kept seeing it more and more and more. And then it came to a point where then, maybe a few weeks later, a few months later, I had to share my screen with somebody. And it's like, well, what product am I going to use? This Join Me thing was super damn easy, so I'm probably going to use that because they've already made my life easier and added a ton of value to me. Now, once you go into Join Me, you do have to, and you are the presenter, you do have to download a lightweight agent. But still, they already had hooked me with the viewer experience, which is pretty fantastic. So moving on to another example, this is Optimizely. This is Optimizely's old landing page. It looks different today. I went to the Wayback Machine to pull this. But this is what it looked like for a really, really long time, and this is what it looked like that really kind of drove them through their initial wave to ubiquity. And now I think that they're optimizing, no pun intended, kind of today on the margin because they don't really have a problem of awareness or a problem of lead flow. But back then, using product as marketing at the forefront was their sort of paragon and what they did really, really well. So we see it here, and there is a massive call to action here. It's a search bar, effectively what looks like a search bar. And it very clearly says, type in a URL to try it out, test it out. And if you went through this experience in the past, you can click test it out. There's a popover that comes up that says, do you want to enter your email? It's not mandatory, so you can actually X out of that. And then, so if you opt out of that, with the one click, the test it out click, boom, you're in using Optimizely's product. And if you hadn't used it before, it's a visual editor that allows you to sort of change the text, change the font, change the picture, change the color of the HTML elements on your website, in this sort of sandbox environment. So literally one click later, you're using their product and getting value out of it because you're seeing, okay, this is what it would look like for me to do all those A/B testing things that I've always dreamed of, right? So they're adding value within about 30 seconds of somebody landing on their page, which is awesome. Here's another example. HubSpot's been great at this, and this is a kind of a twofold example. So HubSpot famously had their it was a website grader, and then I think they now call it marketing grader, which is a tool that added a ton of value. But obviously was a lead gen tool for them. at the early days. This is a new one that they came out with called Make My Persona, and it's actually a persona builder. So you can go on here and answer a bunch of questions, and then they'll give you a deliverable that you can share with your whole team that describes your persona. Who is he or she, what's their title, what do they want in life, what's important to them, all that kind of stuff. So this is great because HubSpot does it, and HubSpot's awesome at this. But also, you might be recognizing this interface, and that's because this interface is Typeform, who we looked at before. And so Typeform is this experience. I had the same Join Me style experience with Typeform the first few times I used it. I used it to sign up for conferences, to sign up for subscriptions to products, or to sort of content, premium content subscriptions. I used it, for feedback forms, things like that. And I started to see this thing. I was like, this is awesome. This is a great product. I loved taking that survey, which usually when I get the survey link, I kind of roll my eyes and say, like, not another survey. As much as SurveyMonkey, people love SurveyMonkey, the UI is kind of, it's a little long on the tooth. So this is a really interesting kind of double team thing here where we got HubSpot, adding a ton of value, but they're adding a ton of value with Typeform. And so now you've gone through this elegant experience, like, what is that product? And Typeform's already added a ton of value to my life. So now when I have to actually make a form, what product am I going to use or consider? I'm going to go back and find that Typeform thing because it was such a great experience as a user. SaaS hurdle number 3, can I try the thing, right? What does the thing do? How does it work? Or what is the thing? What does it do? What does it look like? And then can I try it, right? We talked about adding value even before the sign up, but the next step is making the sign up super easy. So I think that we can turn to a bad example here with our friends over at Oracle, and nobody's going to get upset for poking the bear here. But Oracle, this is their marketing cloud. So this is, they acquired a company a number of years ago called Eloqua, competes against Marketo and HubSpot at the enterprise level. If you go to the site, the landing page is just terrible. And this is like, Oracle is a very sales-led organization, and they can be sales-led because they are Oracle and they have a massive installed base, and just put more things in the salesperson's bag and they'll sell it. So they don't really have to have a great website, but you go to the website and it's no information. It's pretty terrible. You click, sort of try it out or see it or get a demo or something like that. I forget the call to action, and it takes you to this page. This is a really, really long form. It's not particularly elegant, and I'm not inspired by this, but this is my reaction. You probably feel the same way. Now, moving on, if we go back to our friends over at Trello, I'd say this is much better. If you click that link that we saw at the very beginning, it's test it out or try it out or something like that. You're brought to this, and you're able to create a Trello account. 3 things to enter: name, email, password. Great. Or I can just do a one-click version, which I'm sure their customer base, there's a lot of people on Google Apps and a lot of people on Gmail for Business. So one click even, and boom, I'm using the product, which, in contrast to the Oracle response, makes me feel like this, pretty glad and pretty content. Now, there is an even better version that I've experienced, and I'll give you one example. So here's a company called Clearbit, awesome product for programmatic lead enrichment. You should totally take a look at it. They do lots of different things, and one of the many products that they have is this thing called Clearbit Connect, which allows you to find anybody's email address, and it works really, really awesome. So I highly recommend it. But you see up here that this call to action is a one-click install Connect for Gmail. One click later, I'm using the product, which makes me feel like this. Just hearts in my eyes and in love. It's awesome. So now that I've signed up for a product, now you've taken me through a one-click sign-up process that's super easy. I come to SaaS hurdle number 4, which is, do I like the thing? And I think that that's ultimately a question of delivering value quickly. It made it super easy to sign up, but if I have no idea what to do, or if there's a ton of hurdles, or if it's really cumbersome once I do sign up, the value, the time to sign up was slow, or was fast, but the time to value is really kind of confusing and unclear. So bringing back to that example of Clearbit, if you're inside Gmail, which is where you use this product, this was 2 clicks later. You can very, very easily, it says, you can click find an email, it says what company, and then you click next, and then it says what person, and there's actually a drop-down menu, so it actually starts to suggest it, so you can find the exact person. And this is me. I mean, three clicks later from not even having the product installed, boom, I have somebody's email address that I might want to send and prospect to. So that time to value was super, super fast, and the sign-up was super fast too, which is great. Here's Trello. Again, if you do that one-click login with Google thing, you're instantly creating a board. So here's my little fake board for this webinar here, and this all took 1 minute or something like that, which is great. So in summary, on this side of things, in relation to hurdles, I think it's important to first message clearly, to show, don't tell, to remove friction, and reduce time to value. But this time to value concept is relative. Time to value is relative. And what do I mean by that? You might have been sensing this tension yourself and said, okay, great, well, I'm not Clearbit. I don't have this tiny little sort of lightweight product that can just easily be installed into Google Apps or into Gmail, so what do I do? And that's why time to value is not absolute, it's relative. And it's relative, I think, to your initial ASP, your average selling price. And because if you have a low initial ASP, then the time to value has to be next to zero, as fast as possible. But if you have a high initial ASP, which probably is a proxy for high initial complexity in terms of implementation, then your time to value is relative, right? And it's going to be longer. You're not going to have a 2-minute time to value. And to give a couple of examples, at the bottom here we have Trello, which we talked about. The time to value has to be super, super fast because the initial ASP is either free or very, very minimally priced. At the other end of the spectrum, we have something like Palantir, which there is no fast time to value for Palantir because they're dealing with the most complex, high security, high intensity enterprise sort of situations that require a lot of sort of implementation work and all this stuff. So time to value is still important. It can't take Palantir a year to 5 years to deliver value, but it's relative to the complexity of what they're trying to accomplish and also relative to their competition. If they're delivering value faster than their competitors, then that also means that they're winning sort of at this key thing. But either way, whether you're a small price point sort of initial ASP or a large initial ASP with more complexity, the important thing is to create a wow experience. And let me just clarify that it needs to be a good wow experience, because we've all had those experiences that are like Warby Parker's retail store, which is just wow, it's awesome, it was so easy, so elegant, I loved all the people, it's so helpful. But then we've also all had the experience where we go to the DMV and it's just saying, wow, this is as bad as everybody says, and it gets worse every single time I come. So create wow experiences, but make sure that they're good wow experiences. So rounding it out here and bringing it to the final topic on product-led growth, we talked a lot about getting people into your product, using your product as marketing or as the sort of core of your marketing sort of strategy, getting out of the way, removing hurdles. But what about sales? And at the top of the call, we talked about how some of these companies, when you look at their team page, when you hear their philosophy a little bit, it can seem, sort of seemingly anti-sales. There is no sales here. They don't seem oriented towards sales. So does that mean that sales is dead in the future? And short answer, no, but let's dive into it. I think that sales is kind of a lightning rod topic, and sales incites dogma. And let me just sort of illustrate a little bit here. There's kind of some tribalism at work when you bring up the topic of sales. So I'm going to highlight the 3 sales tribes just real quick. Tribe 1, enterprise sales is king, right? And some popular dogma of the enterprise sales is king tribe is, number 1, inside sales is for kids. Good luck, have fun selling your toy, but, call me when you need the real thing to be sold. Number 2, product. It is an arrow in my quiver. What are the techies doing back there in the cave? Have they built a new product? I need some new arrows in my quiver so that I can go sell and hit my quota and help grow this company. And third, marketing really is just responsible for art projects. So I'm stereotyping a bit here, but you've all met the extreme enterprise field bag carrying sales reps before that kind of have this fundamental mentality that everything else is kind of like, a joke, and they're sort of going to go take the hill with General Patton, and there's a lot of tribalism involved. So let's move on to tribe 2. Inside sales is eating the world, which is kind of, the sort of yin and yang of the last one, which is, if we're talking about the dogma here, enterprise sales, first and foremost, is for bag carrying, blazer wearing, golf playing, steak eating, loud mouths, and Luddites. Tell me what you really believe. It's kind of it's funny, but this is an extreme example, but this is true. I mean, I think if you go and meet with companies that have inside sales and that are inside sales first, in San Francisco or here in Boston or in New York, and you sort of come in wearing a Brooks Brothers blue blazer and say like, hey, give me my 250 OTE with a draw, and I'm going to go start selling stuff on my United sort of 1K pass. People are going to be like, no, this is not how it works. You've all been there. You've all heard it, right? And number 2, product. Product is great, but product ultimately is demo fuel. I'm all about demos. I'm all about high velocity stuff, and I need good fuel and a lot of fuel in order to do my demos because I got a lot of large numbers that I'm working with here. And then lastly, marketing is important, but marketing is demand gen, right? It's the thing that gets demos scheduled for me so that I can just bang out calls and sell stuff in a high velocity manner from my desk with the music blaring because I'm in one of those sales environments. And then tribe 3 here is the tribe that I sort of started to imply a little bit, which is you hear sometimes in the product-led growth world, or it can be implied in the product-led growth world, which is sales is evil, right? And we've all talked to people, founders or product people or engineers or CTOs that sort of just fundamentally don't believe in sales at all and dismiss it entirely because they have a great freemium strategy or there's a lot of word of mouth or things like that. And so if we talk about a little bit of the dogma, the popular dogma for the sales is evil tribe, first and foremost, in relation to salespeople, sales is sleazy. It's outdated and it's unnecessary. Again, because the product is selling itself and it's good. It's so good that we don't need anybody to work on distribution. And product, again, like I said, it's something that sells itself, and it is the sort of front and center piece of the organization. And then thirdly, marketing is important, but it's in service of product. Maybe we're going to have some content marketing that talks about how great the product is, but really at the end of the day, get out of the way and let the product do the talking. And so these are 3 tribes. There's probably plenty of other tribes as well, but the secret is that all 3 tribes are wrong. And it's not because there isn't any validity in these points. It's just that tribalism is bad. When you have your hands over your eyes and your ears and you're saying like, no, I can't learn anything from somebody else. There's one way to do it. It's not a good way to go about life, and it's not a good way to go about business or learning about how to distribute a product optimally for your market and for your price point and for your product. And sales is not a binary or a monolithic thing, whether you're on the positive side or you're on the negative side, whether you're on the inside or the outside in terms of your orientation. And look, if maybe this is like touching a nerve for some of you guys because you kind of identify maybe not in that strong language with one of these tribes, I would encourage you not to be this guy. Don't do this because that, again, is the definition of tribalism. Let's see what we can learn from other people. But back to the topic of sales in a product-led growth world. What does it look like? And it might not look like what you think. I think that it looks a lot like support and success. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's bring up a handy-dandy 2x2 matrix. And first off, we're talking about people helping users. So over here, we have your people helping. So people that work at your company helping, whatever their title may be. And over here, you have users. Now, your posture for helping can either be reactive or it can be proactive. And your users can either be customers, meaning people that are currently paying you money to be a user, or it can be prospects, people that are further up the funnel that haven't yet decided to give you money, but they're testing things out and they're somewhere earlier in the buyer's journey. If you're down here in the bottom left quadrant, if you're reactively engaging or helping your customers, you're doing customer support. As we move, if you're up here in this quadrant, you're proactively helping customers, helping users that are already your customers, which people today are calling customer success. You're not reactively waiting, you're proactively getting involved to help ensure and maximize success. Now if we shift over, the close neighbor is sales, because you are proactively helping users that are not yet customers. They're already in your funnel. You still want to be oriented towards success, and they are customers. They are people that are just not customers yet, right? They're very close to that, crossing that line, but there doesn't need to be some mysterious line that, like, because they haven't, they aren't officially customers yet, I can't help them because it has some four-letter word of sales associated with it. It's just bogus, right? It's the close neighbor of customer success for the same exact people that just happen to be a little higher up in your funnel. And if you're down here in this quadrant, being reactive to prospects is just bad. Just don't do that. Said a different way or illustrated a different way, here's the same 2x2 quadrant. We've removed the lines. We've sort of shown a migration or sort of a maturity curve. If you truly are product-led, managing a product-led growth sort of organization, you're probably going to graduate through this curve and grow through this curve. But that's why I say that it's a curve, that it's not separate things. They aren't monolithic things. It is the continuation of the same things. So you're going to start with being reactive towards your customers once you get enough of them, and that's going to be support. Everybody gets a few support people. You're responding to tickets. You're responding to people in intercom, whatever it may be. Then you start getting to a point where, like, okay, we got a lot of customers, so we got to make sure that, and maybe we saw some churn, so we got to make sure that doesn't happen. So now we're doing customer success, being a little bit more proactive for those customers, not just waiting for them to file a ticket. And then you just continue on from there. Sales is the continuation of success. I don't need to say more about it. It's just really not that scary of a thing. And there is a way to do it in a sort of success-oriented world. I'll go quickly through this because we're sort of at the end of time here. But helping users through the customer journey, very quickly, this is a super dumbed-down version, but you start with evaluation on the journey. You move to purchase. You move to setup or implementation or something like that. You move to usage. And then you move to renewal. I've been using it for a while. Am I going to renew? Am I going to stay on the product? And then it continues on from there. Or maybe this is a loop or something like that. And if we think about the departments of who helps users at these different stages of the journey, traditionally evaluation is the responsibility of marketing. Purchase is the responsibility of sales in a traditional organization. Setup or implementation or whatever is the responsibility of professional services or your implementation team or something like that. I know professional services is a bad word, but hey, don't be tribal about that either. And then usage is if I'm using it, if I have a problem, that's going to be handled by support traditionally. And then renewal is going to be handled by AMs, right, account management. This is the traditional organization. Now, this is all being blown up today because of customer success. And so customer success is taking over, starting with, I think, renewals. So we're no longer just calling up 3 weeks before the renewal's up and saying, hey, you want to buy some more of this product? You're actually getting out ahead of it. You're monitoring usage metrics and things like that, and you're actually oriented towards success and not towards the relationship, not towards just the transaction, which just feels sleazy, right? And then we actually see success moving to the left, and we're not waiting for people to file support tickets. What we're seeing, does it appear that they're having a problem in the system? And what can we do to help them be more successful so they're getting value out of the product? It continues on to the left. And now, again, nobody talks about professional services anymore because it's a bad thing, but customer success is making sure that people get set up the right way. They get implemented the right way, that their use case is known, that we're getting them pointed in the right direction because you want them to be successful and heading down the right path, not the wrong path, not a confusing path from day one, right? And so that's customer success. Now, this is where customer success ends today for even the most sophisticated organizations is, all right, we got our funnel to get people to become customers, and then once they are customers, then we're going to focus on making them successful. But what I would posit is saying, again, with that idea that it's all in the same continuum and they don't need to have a sort of special wall dividing the two of them, what if, we just moved over to the left and success was just the new way of thinking about sales, right? And there's going to be a lot of implications of that, how you do sales. But if you took that customer success, customer first, product first, success-oriented, user-oriented sort of approach, you can do sales in a different way, and it kind of sanitizes the word a little bit. And I think one day even marketing is going to be able to be more oriented towards customer success. And we might be starting to see that with the account-based everything, like really focusing on target accounts as opposed to straight spray and pray. So I think we're in an interesting world where customer success is eating everything. But since we said that it's not just customers, it's prospects, we might need to call it prospect and customer success. But that's a bit of a mouthful, so I don't like that. We're going to do away with that. And really comes back to what I said before, that it's user success. The entire customer journey and buyer journey and whatever it's going to be in the lifetime of the user is user success. And guess what? Product loves users. Product-led growth organizations loves users. And so this is a way where proactive customer success is the equivalent of product-led sales for people that are further up in your funnel. And I hope that is something that makes you react with cheers and excitement, and helps to sanitize sort of a previously dirty word, at least a sort of a touchy subject in this world of dogmatic sales, and say, look, it doesn't have to be that way. You can do it in your own way. And so, in summary and in closing here, we'll just hit the high points. Innovative software companies are embracing product-led growth. If you don't believe me, look at these logos, and there's plenty of others that I could include here. We all know that it's happening. You don't want to be a fossil. You want to evolve. And the way that you do that is by making something people want. But realize when you make something people want that there is a continuum of product market fit. It's not a purely binary thing. Once you've built that product and you've established that product market fit, figured out where you are on this continuum, you need to remove the hurdles and the friction. You need to create a wow experience, but the good kind of wow, not a DMV experience. You need to not be dogmatic about sales. Tribalism is bad. And this is what that looks like. There's sales is the continuation of success for people that are not yet your customers, and we call those people prospects. So sales is really nothing to be afraid of in a product-led growth world. And if you do all these things, look, I think I can't promise it, but I'm pretty sure that Christmas is going to come early. You're going to get everything that you want in your hopes and dreams, and we're all going to celebrate. So thank you. That is it, and we're going to take a couple of questions in the last minute that we have here. Just taking a look, see if there's any questions that came across. I'm looking at the chat here.
Blake, there was one at the beginning about what qualifies as product market fit for B2B. They specifically build apps for the construction industry.
Yeah. What qualifies as product market fit for B2B products? Well, I mean, everything that I'm talking about here is oriented towards B2B products. So I think, honestly, it's, do you have people using your product? You got to start with, did you build something that people want? Did you solve a real problem? Are users actually using that product? You got to start there, right? And then from there, when, again, you sort of say, hey, now you got to pay for the product, and you put up that paywall, whether that's from the very beginning or whether that's sort of later on with some sort of free trial or freemium strategy, and there's no willingness to pay, then you might need to go back to the drawing board on either the product or the pricing or the, how it's presented or something like that. But I think that really is it. Do you have users that love it, and are they willing to pay for it, and how much are they willing to pay for it? You see any other questions on here, Casey?
I don't. It seems like I think you probably answered everybody's questions, and I know we are getting close to, actually one just came in. Do you see these companies outsourcing web design or hiring internally?
Yeah, I think everybody's typically going to have designers on staff. I think that this is, especially in a product-led growth world, your product is marketing and marketing is product, and they're starting to become much more closely aligned. And so, design is, you're not outsourcing it typically in this world. I mean, if you're building a WordPress site, maybe you don't have WordPress developers internally or something like that, so the actual construction gets outsourced, if you will. Maybe some of the designers are freelance, but for the most part, you don't want to entrust that story and that messaging and something as critical as this when the stakes are so high, to somebody else.
Great. All right. Since we're close to the top of the hour, if any more questions come in, I know all of you have my emails from the correspondence that I've been sending out, so do please feel free to email any questions that might come up. As I mentioned earlier, I will be sending out the deck and the recording, so you'll be able to have access to that. Blake, thank you so much for your time. It was a really great presentation. I know the audience enjoyed listening, and to all of you who were on it, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Blake will also be doing a call on July 19th, so we would love to have you join us for that. We'll be sending out the information to sign up, and please keep an eye on our website for all of the upcoming events. So with that, everyone have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you at an event soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.